Hi guys, this is Charisse LaSalle, an associate trainer for Art to Ride, and this is part 2 of my April 2018 submission. You may notice that my hands are sometimes all over the place, and this is intentional. This is not riding in a show, this is training, and when training, a lot of times we have to move our arms, legs, and torso in ways that might not be pretty per se, but if it's able to get the job done, then that's what we need to do. So you need to judge based on how the horse is going, not so much how the rider looks when they're training. So right here we're getting some nice moments with Charlie. You can see that his back is still pretty dropped, which I believe just means he needs to develop it further. But he was stepping nicely under and stretching down, and he looks very relaxed. See right there, that's good, that looks good. He slowed down a tad too much. I would like to see him not slow down quite that much through the corners. But at this stage in his training, he definitely slows down in the corners. So his head comes up a little there because he's not really sure what we're doing. And that was actually a decent circle for him. His head came up higher than I would like, but I was establishing the circle so that I could then begin my trot work. And you'll see that he actually does better in the trot work. By that I mean he stretches more consistently, and I feel like he's able to push up through his back more when he trots. And always starting out, he needs to cough several times and kind of get into the swing of it. So I try to leave him alone until he kind of gets into his groove. And he's not looking too bad. I try to use the whole arena when possible because Charlie tends to get way too slow, and if I let him use the whole arena, he tends to be much more forward and energetic. But I sometimes have to circle him because he gets a little strung out and he loses his back, and he just puts his head up too high, and so then I do circle him, but I try really hard to not interfere with him very much when I'm riding him at the trot, because he's trying to figure out his balance with me on his back. So I try very hard to not impact him in any way negatively. So for instance, I won't, just because he's losing his back, he's dropping his back, doesn't mean that I'm going to all of a sudden make a circle immediately, because he might need a moment to respond to my aids. He will need a moment to realize what I'm asking him, so it'll take a few strides before I can get him to begin to circle. I never want to yank his head or pull him onto a circle if I can help it. I really want to steer him mostly with my body and my legs, and then the reins are just guiding like the banks of a river. But it's easier said than done. So you'll see a lot of variation in his speed, and his head and neck does come up and down still quite a bit, but he's definitely more consistent in the trot work than in the walk work under saddle. I also did really study this video footage, and I noticed that his trot work has quite a big, that was nice right there. There's quite a huge range in the quality of his trot. At this point, there are moments where his trot is very short strided and he drops his back. And then there's moments where he really opens up his stride and steps nicely under his belly with the hind legs and pushes up through his back. So my goal is to get him to have a more consistent, higher quality in the trot work, where most of the steps are nice, big, swinging steps rather than the short, choppy steps, which causes him to hollow his back. That was a pretty nice moment down there. And I apologize, I don't have a cameraman on with me all the time, so I have put the camera as far back as I can against the arena wall, but it still cuts off a good portion of the arena. So I'm sorry about the parts where you get to stare at the empty arena. So I'm asking him to circle because I felt like he was losing it, and he's still not quite got it back yet. And there, it's getting better. That was nice. And so I must have felt that was good for that particular day, so I brought him back to a walk. And one thing I have been working on with him too is that after I bring him down from the trot, he almost stops. I think you'll see it later. He actually stops right. He goes from a trot to a halt basically, and I'm not looking for that at this stage in his training. So I'm trying to explain to him that just because we stop trotting doesn't mean we're done. So you'll notice that his walk gets pretty slow after the trot work, and I'm trying to reverse that and help him to keep walking nice and actively after we come out of the trot. So you saw I looked over my shoulder at where I wanted to go when we were going to make that turn. I think I looked maybe a little too much. I don't want to throw him off balance or put too much weight on the wrong seat bone. So I need to be a little more careful about the guiding that I'm doing with my head and shoulders, that it doesn't go overboard. And I'd like to, in my next video, I hope that I'm able to get a lot better quality in the walk work under saddle, because I'm really not pleased with the lack of stretching down and using his back in the walk work in this particular video. It's not terrible, but it definitely needs to improve quite a bit. And you can see behind the saddle how dropped his back is. Which is definitely not going to help his kissing spines. So now we're trotting in the other direction, and he's already warmed up, so he's already moving a little better. It's looking pretty nice. So we're looking for a nice big step under the body. It doesn't have to be fast, it just needs to be a nice big deep step. There, that was pretty nice. And I feel like a lot of times, like right now, how he's stretching down the long side, when I can keep him in the stretch down the long side, he moves really well. He's able to take a bigger stride, and I think since he was a racehorse for so long, he really struggles to do bending. He's pretty stiff, and so it's much easier for him to go down the long sides of the arena than to stay on a circle. Like right there, that's nice. You can't see how big of a step he's taking, but I can tell you from the way that it feels when I'm on him that he takes a bigger stride when he's able to maintain the stretch down the long side. Like right there, you can kind of see, still on a difficult angle, but you can see that he's stepping nicely. And then he gets real short at the corners. So you can see how he's struggling to maintain his balance when he gets to those corners. And even on the circle, it's really difficult for him to maintain his balance. So I try really hard to keep myself in balance all the time, but unfortunately, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I mess up his balance. I also think in this video that I was leaning a tad too far back. See right here, I'm kind of falling back on his back. Every time I go down in the posting, I'm kind of falling down into like a hole because for one, he's hollow, and for two, my legs are out in front of me and my shoulders are too far back. So next time I ride, I need to think of inclining my shoulders just a tiny bit and make sure that I keep my legs underneath me a little more. And part of that is because my saddle unfortunately puts me in a bit of a chair seat just by the way it's designed. And I'm going to hopefully get that adjusted again soon. So I will ask the saddle fitter if she can maybe change it somehow that would help me to not be in quite so much of a chair seat. So there's a nice big stride. Still could be a little bigger. He's starting to move a little bit more regularly. And I must have felt that he did a good job, and so I said whoa, and he halted. So that's something I'm gonna really wean him off of my voice commands when I ride him now, because I think the voice command is what's partly causing him to stop so abruptly, is when he hears me say whoa, he just puts the brakes on. So I think that maybe if I stop using my voice, that will help. So now we're kind of wrapping up our session, and I'm trying to get a little better quality walk from him, because even though we did a lot of walking before the trot work, I wasn't really that happy with it. He really wasn't stretching down as much as I would like, and he really wasn't lifting his back as much as I would like. So now that I've gotten him to use his back a little more in the trot work, I'm hoping that I can transfer that to the walk work, and you'll see that we do get to a good point, at a good place at the end here. Now, if I could get that quality of work at the beginning, we'd be in good shape. He's starting to step more under. There we go. Getting a little better. He slowed down a little too much. There. That's what we need in the walk from him. So like I said, if I can get this quality in the beginning, we'll be golden. Thanks so much for watching, guys.